Sometimes you reach a point where you wonder if you're actually growing or just moving in circles. It can feel like nothing is changing, even though you're putting in effort, reflecting on your choices, and trying to understand yourself better. But healing isn't always loud, obvious, or dramatic. Most of the time, it happens quietly, in small moments you don't even recognize as progress. Carl Jung often emphasized that the deeper parts of the mind work in the background long before we see any clear results. That means you might be improving in ways that don't show up immediately, but the shift is happening underneath your everyday awareness. You might still feel uncertain, still feel stressed at times, or still have old patterns show up. But even with all that, there can be subtle signs that something inside you is becoming stronger, steadier, and more grounded. Today, let's walk through the signs that your healing is already unfolding, even if you don't fully see it yet. The first sign is that you're becoming more aware of your inner reactions. You notice what's happening inside you with more clarity than before. You catch yourself feeling irritated, anxious, or overwhelmed sooner, instead of realizing it hours later. You observe your thoughts as they appear, instead of getting pulled into them without noticing. This shift might seem small, but it's a major step in healing. Carl Jung often highlighted the importance of bringing the unconscious into awareness. When you start noticing your reactions in real time, it means you're not running on old patterns as blindly as you used to. You're beginning to recognize what triggers you, what drains you, and what supports you. Even if you don't always respond perfectly, the simple act of noticing is powerful. Awareness creates space, and in that space, healthier choices slowly begin to form. This is one of the clearest early signs that something deep within you is changing. The second sign is that you're becoming a little more patient with yourself. You may not feel completely confident or calm, but you're not attacking yourself the way you used to. You give yourself a bit more room to make mistakes. You allow yourself to be human, even if only for a moment. You start noticing that the harsh inner voice isn't as loud or as quick to take over. It still shows up, but it doesn't dominate the entire experience. You pause before judging yourself, and sometimes you even catch yourself offering understanding instead of criticism. Carl Jung believed that treating yourself with honesty and gentleness helps you integrate the parts of you that were once pushed aside. This small shift in tone, from self-blame to self-allowance, is a sign that you're no longer fighting yourself as intensely. You might still feel frustrated at times, but you recover faster. You recognize that growth isn't about perfection, it's about consistency and compassion. That softer inner attitude is a meaningful step in your healing. The third sign is that you're starting to question your old habits instead of following them without thinking. You catch yourself right before reacting in the same old way. You pause long enough to ask yourself whether this response still fits who you're becoming. You might notice yourself stopping in the middle of an old pattern and thinking, "Why am I doing this? Do I actually want to respond like this? Is this still useful to me?" That tiny moment of questioning is a major breakthrough. It means you're no longer driven entirely by old conditioning. Something in you is waking up and choosing to respond more consciously. Carl Jung often emphasized the importance of becoming aware of automatic behaviors, because that awareness opens the door to change. When you start interrupting old patterns, even for a second, it shows that your inner world is shifting. You may not always choose the new behavior, and that's okay. The fact that you're noticing the habit at all is proof that healing is taking root. You're slowly replacing autopilot with deliberate choice, and that change grows stronger over time. The fourth sign is that your emotional highs and lows don't feel as intense as they once did. You still experience frustration, sadness, or stress, but the emotional spikes don't last as long. You bounce back a little quicker. You regain your balance without sinking as deeply into the moment. You start noticing that what used to overwhelm you now feels a bit more manageable. You might still react, but you recover with more steadiness. There's a growing sense of internal stability, even if it's subtle. Carl Jung often spoke about the importance of creating more equilibrium within the self. When your emotional swings soften, it shows that your inner system is adjusting, strengthening, and finding a healthier center. This doesn't mean you feel calm all the time. It simply means you don't get swept away as easily. You can feel things without being controlled by them. That shift is a meaningful sign that your mind and emotions are gradually becoming more grounded. Even small improvements in emotional balance are strong indicators of healing happening beneath the surface. The fifth sign is that old stories about who you used to be don't hold the same power over you. You start noticing that certain memories, labels, or assumptions from the past feel a little lighter. They no longer define you in the same strict way they once did. You catch yourself thinking, maybe I don't have to see myself that way anymore. Maybe that story isn't as true as I believed. Maybe I've grown beyond that version of myself. This shift shows that you're beginning to separate your identity from the past. You're giving yourself permission to see yourself with fresh eyes instead of being trapped in old roles. Carl Jung emphasized the importance of understanding the past without becoming imprisoned by it. When old narratives loosen their grip, it means you're integrating your experiences rather than being shaped entirely by them. You might still remember the past clearly, but the emotional weight behind it starts to fade. You look at it with more perspective and less self-blame. You can hold your history without letting it dictate who you must be today. This quiet freedom is a powerful sign that your healing is taking root. The sixth sign is that you're beginning to take small actions toward the things that matter to you. These actions might seem minor on the surface, but they reflect a deeper shift happening inside you. You start doing things that support your growth, even if they're simple or quiet. You show up for tasks you once avoided. You follow through on something you promised yourself. You take a tiny step that aligns with the person you want to become. It may not look dramatic, but it's meaningful. Carl Jung often highlighted how inner changes eventually show up in outer behavior. When you begin taking even the smallest helpful action, it means your inner world is strengthening and guiding you forward. You don't wait for perfect motivation. You don't rely on the ideal moment. You simply do what you can with the energy you have, and that consistency adds up. These small steps are not random. They're indicators that your healing is turning into action, steady, realistic, and grounded. Each little move is a sign that you're growing, even if you can't see the full picture yet. The seventh sign is that you're able to sit with discomfort without immediately shutting down or escaping. You might feel stress, frustration, or uncertainty, but instead of reacting impulsively, you allow yourself to stay present with it for a moment longer. You notice your feelings without needing to fix them right away. You observe tension instead of avoiding it. That pause is a sign of growing emotional resilience. Carl Jung emphasized that facing the uncomfortable parts of ourselves is essential for real growth. When you can tolerate difficult emotions without being overwhelmed, it shows that you're building inner strength. This doesn't mean discomfort disappears completely. It means you're learning to meet it with awareness rather than fear or avoidance. Each time you stay present with what's hard, you strengthen your ability to respond with clarity instead of reaction. Being able to hold space for discomfort is one of the quiet but powerful ways healing reveals itself. The eighth sign is that you're learning to accept uncertainty instead of feeling the need to solve everything right away. You don't rush to fix a problem or force clarity the moment a challenge appears. You give yourself permission to let things unfold naturally. You notice that stepping back sometimes provides more insight than pushing forward. You can sit with questions, doubts, or confusion without panic. That patience shows that your mind is becoming more flexible and less reactive. Carl Jung often suggested that understanding often comes after a period of reflection rather than during the initial chaos. By allowing time, you're giving your inner self a chance to process and organize thoughts more effectively. You may still seek answers, but you no longer demand them instantly. This calm approach demonstrates a subtle yet profound shift in how you handle life's challenges. Accepting uncertainty is a quiet, invisible marker of healing at work. The ninth sign is that you're becoming more aware of what truly matters to you. You start recognizing the choices, actions, and priorities that align with your personal growth. Things that once seemed important may no longer feel essential, and you feel more clarity about what supports your path forward. You pay attention to how your actions reflect your inner principles. You make decisions based on what resonates with your sense of purpose, rather than outside pressure or old habits. Even small moments of alignment with your values are meaningful indicators of progress. Carl Jung emphasized that connecting with your authentic self is central to growth. When you recognize and honor your values, you're strengthening the part of you that guides choices intentionally rather than reacting automatically. This awareness doesn't always produce immediate changes in behavior, but it quietly shapes the way you move through life. Each conscious choice that reflects your values is a sign that healing is unfolding beneath the surface. The 10th sign is that you begin to feel a small sense of inner space or mental breathing room. Even if life is busy or stressful, there's a subtle awareness that not everything is crowded or overwhelming inside you. This calm, empty space may feel almost invisible, but it's a sign that your mind and emotions are slowly clearing. You notice that thoughts don't feel as chaotic. You have brief moments where you can step back and observe instead of reacting immediately. This inner space allows perspective, reflection, and choice. Carl Jung often highlighted the importance of creating mental and emotional room for growth. When you feel this quiet space, it shows that the clutter of old patterns, worries, or self-judgment is starting to lift. Even if it's only a fleeting sensation, that breathing room is powerful. It signals that your healing is unfolding in ways you might not yet fully see. You're giving yourself the opportunity to grow steadily, from the inside out. So, how to expand your healing? Healing doesn't stop at awareness. You can actively nurture it and make it stronger. Start by paying attention to yourself with gentle curiosity. Notice your thoughts, emotions, and patterns without judgment. For example, if you catch yourself feeling irritated, pause and ask, "Why am I feeling this way?" Simply observing is already a form of growth. Next, give yourself permission to act in small, meaningful ways. Even tiny steps toward what matters reinforce inner changes. For instance, setting aside 5 minutes to organize your space, jot down your priorities for the day, or tackle one small task you've been avoiding all count. Consistency matters more than perfection. Reflection is another key tool. Take time to pause and think about what you've learned about yourself. Ask questions like, what felt different today? Where did I respond more consciously? Journaling, even for a few minutes, or quietly reviewing your day can make a big difference. Also, practice patience. Healing unfolds slowly and quietly. Trust that small shifts, like choosing to respond calmly instead of reacting instantly, or noticing a habitual thought without judgment, are building momentum, even if you don't see immediate results. Create space for self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer someone else. For example, if you make a mistake at work, instead of harsh self-criticism, acknowledge that you're learning and give yourself guidance for next time. Or, when you feel anxious or drained, allow yourself a short break without guilt. Other examples include setting boundaries with activities or commitments that drain you, practicing deep breathing for a few minutes a day, or quietly celebrating small achievements, like completing a task you've been avoiding. By combining awareness, small actions, reflection, patience, and self-compassion, and applying them in these small, concrete ways, you give your healing the room it needs to grow. Over time, the changes you've been noticing subtly will become more visible and integrated into every part of your life. Healing is a quiet process, but it doesn't mean it's always easy. You may face moments of doubt, frustration, or even fear. Sometimes progress feels invisible, and that can make you wonder if anything is actually changing. Here are some challenges you might face while healing. One challenge is encountering old habits or patterns that seem to resurface. For example, you might notice yourself snapping at a colleague, procrastinating on a task, or falling back into a negative thought pattern you thought you had overcome. This doesn't mean you've failed. It's part of the process. Jung reminded us that growth is rarely linear and often comes in waves. Another challenge is impatience. You might want quick results, like feeling consistently calm or confident, and when that doesn't happen, it can feel discouraging. You might expect every day to feel like progress, but healing often moves in small, subtle steps. Journaling to track tiny improvements, or noting even brief moments of calm, can help you see the change happening over time. You may also face discomfort when confronting difficult emotions. For instance, you might feel anxious about an upcoming event, frustrated with a personal limitation, or unsettled by a memory you had pushed aside. Sitting with these emotions instead of avoiding them can feel intense, but it's a sign your inner resilience is growing. Taking short breaks, practicing deep breathing, or talking through your feelings with someone you trust can make these moments more manageable. External pressures can also challenge your healing. Deadlines, work stress, or unexpected responsibilities may make it hard to focus on yourself. Even small actions, taking 5 minutes to plan your day intentionally, pausing before reacting, or quietly celebrating a completed task, can reinforce progress. Finally, self-doubt can creep in. You might think, "I'm not doing enough," or "I'm not improving fast enough." When that happens, remind yourself of the subtle signs of progress. Noticing a reaction earlier, responding more calmly, or choosing a small action in line with your values. Each of these moments counts as real growth. Remember, challenges are not signs of failure. They are part of the journey. Every time you face them consciously, whether it's a resurfacing habit, a difficult emotion, or an external stressor, you're strengthening your ability to heal. Jung emphasized that embracing difficulty is essential to growth because it's through these challenges that inner transformation happens. A big part of healing is discovering who you truly are. The more you understand yourself, the easier it becomes to make choices that support your growth and inner balance. You might start noticing patterns in your thoughts, emotions, or behaviors that you hadn't been aware of before. For example, you could see that certain situations consistently trigger stress, like tight deadlines or overly busy schedules, while other activities genuinely energize you, like reading, reflecting, or focusing on a single task. Observing these patterns helps you understand what supports your well-being and what doesn't. Reflection is key. Take time to ask yourself questions like what you really value in your daily life, which activities leave you feeling drained, and which leave you feeling alive, and how you usually respond under stress compared to how you would like to respond. You can journal your answers, take a quiet walk to think them over, or pause at the end of the day to reflect. Each small insight is valuable. Embedded affirmations can reinforce this process. You can silently tell yourself, "I am learning more about myself every day. I honor my needs and my feelings. I am capable of making choices that support my growth, and I am becoming more aligned with who I truly am. Carl Jung emphasized that self-knowledge is central to personal growth. When you begin to recognize your patterns and tendencies, you gain the power to respond consciously rather than reacting automatically. This allows you to live in alignment with your true values rather than old habits or external pressures. Sometimes you notice that you need a short break when tension builds instead of pushing through until exhaustion, realizing that certain types of tasks like creative projects or focused work make you feel energized and motivated. Catching yourself before reacting with frustration and choosing a calmer response, or recognizing that you enjoy quiet reflection more than constant busyness, and giving yourself permission to prioritize it. In these moments you might say, I give myself permission to pause and reflect. I am learning to respond instead of react. I trust myself to know what is best for me. And each choice I make in alignment with my values strengthens my inner self. Every insight, no matter how small, builds a stronger connection with your authentic self. Knowing yourself better isn't just a step in healing. It's a foundation that supports all the other changes happening within you. The more you explore your inner world, the more grounded, confident, and resilient you become. I am growing deeper in understanding every day. I honor the person I am becoming. I trust my journey and the changes unfolding within me. Healing is often quiet, so it's easy to overlook the small wins. But recognizing subtle progress is a key part of sustaining growth. Even tiny changes matter. You might notice that you reacted differently in a situation that would have triggered you before. Or perhaps you handled a stressful moment with more patience than usual. Even small steps, like completing a task you had been avoiding or pausing before responding to a negative thought, are signs of real progress. Carl Jung believed that acknowledging these small shifts reinforces your inner work. When you celebrate progress, you create a positive feedback loop that encourages more growth. Examples include noticing a moment of calm after a stressful day, catching yourself before falling into a habitual reaction, practicing self-compassion when you make a mistake, or choosing an action that aligns with your values. Even simply reflecting on one positive change at the end of the day counts.